Our other speaker this evening is Cameron Ryland. Cameron co-founded the Podcast Network, which is Australia's first social media company, in 2004. As CEO, he built it into one of the largest independent media sites in Australia, with around 500,000 unique visitors a month. Prior to starting the TPN, Cameron spent 15 years working in sales and marketing roles at Microsoft and Aussiemail, as well as in corporate video production and in the financial services industry. Cam's a regular speaker on issues surrounding social media and social networking and the filter of media, the future of media. Feels a little brain tonight.
Thank you, Nick. I think we're very lucky to have people like Nick who actually know what's going on here. My area of specialty isn't, well, I don't have an area of specialty really, but it's certainly not law. It's not child porn either. But what I know a little bit about is using new media and social media to get people's attention. And, I think that's what the battle here is about. I call this deck, and I've got about 74 slides to get through in 10 minutes, so I'm going to talk quickly, try and keep up. I call it There's a Time. There's Shakespeare fans read Julius Caesar. There's a time in the affairs of men which taken with the club leads on a fortune, amid their lives are voyage of miseries and shallows, right? And I think that's what we're in at the moment. I think this is a tide that's hitting a flood, and if we don't take advantage of this and execute around this, it's going to set a precedent for the next decade or two or three. But there seems to be enough interest, enough anger, enough passion around this issue, particularly around the folks that are very active on social media, that we have an opportunity to actually galvanise the social media front and the political landscape in Australia for the first time. I think we've done that yet, and I think this is our chance. It's a chance to get them to take us seriously, really. I don't think this is about an issue. I think this is about a bigger issue anyway than the internet filter. I think this is an issue about, the major political parties, just doing what they want to do and not really listening to the constituents. There's been a growing vocality and anger about this over the last 18 months since the right government got into power, and they've completely ignored it. And I think this is our opportunity to try and get them to take us seriously on a range of issues, not just this one. But it's going to require a really coordinated campaign. I work in the advertising industry a few days a week at the moment, which is an education, and I think we need to take control of this like it's an advertising campaign. This is around messaging, and I think as a few people were saying before, this is around changing the way that not just the politicians think, but the people think. I think this is a propaganda campaign that we're finding here, and I think a big mistake that we often make with these sorts of things is we try and talk about facts. And it's not about facts. It's about propaganda, as Nick was saying. Conroy has done a very, very good job at controlling the message, controlling the discussion here. And if we're going to win this, we need to become very, very good at understanding the use of propaganda and how it works in the political landscape. Propaganda, for those of you who don't know, was actually coined by Pope Gregory the 15th in 1622. So it has a lot of religious foundings. This is Pope Gregory. It's actually not Pope Gregory, it's Pope Innocent X, who came about 20 years later, but it's one of my favourite Francis Bacon paintings, and whenever I think of a Pope, that's basically what I think of. And that's when I think of Conroy, I think of that as well. Yeah. And I don't think this is an issue about Labor versus Liberal. I mean, Conroy is a fundamentalist right-wing Catholic, a Catholic right. Grew up at a Christian Brothers kind of college in Sydney. Runs a creationist. He's on record as being a creationist. Abbott, as we know, is a fundamentalist Catholic. Fielding, as we know, is some sort of happy clapper. I think what we're seeing happen in Australia at the moment, I mean, what concerns me most about this is that we seem to be heading in the direction of the United States, where there's the rise of the religious right that happened after Reagan became president in the US in the 80s. You go back to 1983, our Prime Minister in Australia, Bob Hawke, was an agnostic. He was a publicly outspoken agnostic. Keating believed in God, but it was Keating. and I think a lot of us respected him for that. But these days, the leader of all of our major parties, and Fielding is one of the people that controls the balance of the power in the Senate, is they're all fundamentalist, right-wing religious types. Now, I'm not going to make this an argument about religion, but I think we need to understand that there is an ideology behind a lot of the stuff that's happening, and as I said, propaganda was invented by the Catholics. They understand this. Now, the thing about propaganda, a lot of my talk's going to be about propaganda, so if you're not interested, go to sleep. I'll be finished in 5 minutes. The thing about propaganda is, a lot of people think propaganda is about telling lies, but that's not what propaganda is about. Jacques Ellul, who was a 20th century French philosopher and Christian anarchist, Christian theologian, I don't quote Christians often, but I'll make an exception this time, he talked about how modern propaganda is about using a variety of truths. Half-truths, limited truths, truths out of context. And you see Conroy does this a lot when he talks about, well, it's about child pornography, as Nick said, or it's about pro-rape. And this is stuff that's already illegal anyway. I don't see what the big hoo-ha about. It's already illegal. But, when we actually look at the RC definitions, it's fairly broad, and it's about stuff that isn't necessarily illegal today. So we need to get really creative. I think we need a campaign slogan. There's a lot of really good campaign slogans that, really caught on, and no one ever did anything about them. But if you look back over the really big successful political campaigns over the last 2-3 decades, they all had very successful, typically 3 or sometimes 4-word slogans that people could get on board with, and they're very emotional. This is one that's not necessarily a political slogan, but it became the buzzword for staying in Iraq, staying in Afghanistan. We have to stay the course. A good 3-word chant, as they say. You need a good 3-word chant to get people on board. No Clean Feed is a 3-word chant, but I'm not sure it has enough emotion to get the general populace aboard. So we need to get our most creative minds, and there are a lot of creative minds in this room and around the interwebs that are passionate about this issue. We need to tap into that talent pool and get them coming up with a campaign slogan that I think can really communicate simply and efficaciously what this is really about, what we're really saying here.